Matt Brown. I'm a product manager at Skuid. Squid is an acronym. It stands for Scalable Kit for User Interface Development or Design. And so we've been on the App Exchange since 2013. And we started out focused primarily on improving the user interface back in the days of Salesforce Classic. And I've got a slide here. Y'all remember what Salesforce Classic looked like. Maybe you're still in there. And in those days, it was a pretty straightforward value prop for Squid. Folks, want to be able to have more than 2 columns on a page. You want to have inline editing on lists, easy filtering, those kinds of things. And Squid's library of components made that very easy to create those kinds of custom pages without code. And so if you didn't want to rack up a ton of code debt to get those custom experiences, Squid was a good way to do that. Salesforce since then has evolved a lot. They've improved out-of-the-box experience for all users using Lightning. And there's a lot of great things about that. And Squid's evolved as well. And so if now what I see as kind of Squid's place in Salesforce is where you have really specialized processes, more specialized user needs, sophisticated data structures that you want to be able to navigate when user experience is really important when you think about things like communities, or if you're working with creatives, stuff like that. Anytime you start to get into that realm of, oh, this is starting to feel like a custom application, then Squid ends up being a really good fit. These are just a couple of screenshots. So everything from kind of, single page apps, this is an account hierarchy navigator, to processes and portals. This is an example of kind of a public facing step-by-step process. You can build all of that without code using Squid and a ton more. There's so many different use cases. We're going to see some really good ones today from Eric at Marianne Liebert Publishing, which we'll get to in a second. So some of those use cases, obviously today we're going to be talking about related lists. That's a really common need for users. Anytime you need to do dynamic display and formatting. So Salesforce has some of that with being able to set component visibility in the Lightning App Builder. But a lot of the time there's a need to do stuff that's a lot more complex, where you have kind of self-building forms on standard objects, custom formatting, custom highlighting of fields, stuff like that. When you want to do stuff with standard objects that's only supported for custom objects, or vice versa, those are the kinds of things where with Squid, we kind of treat all the objects the same. You can do everything you need to do with those objects using our component library. Customizing widgets, when I was working in solutions for Squid, folks would, they'd look at the standard task widget or the standard scheduler widget in Salesforce. And it's like, this is great. It does 80% of what I needed to do, but I need to do this one custom thing. And that's when Squid ends up being a great fit coming in. And we can help you go build that out again without a ton of custom code and tech debt. And then portals and communities. You've got a need for something that's like a consumer grade web experience. You want modern web design. And normally that's immediately jumping to a ton of Visualforce code or a ton of Lightning code. And you can actually go build out those communities without any code with Squid. Squid is extensible, so sometimes if you need to go do something that even Squid can't do declaratively, we give you hooks to go do that, but a tremendous amount of functionality. And so the question is how? How do we do that? Well, the cool thing about Squid is that every problem that you solve, you're going to use the same 3 steps. You're going to go connect to data using what we call models. You're going to then set up your UI, skipping ahead there, using our component libraries to visually display the data. And then we have a ton of logic tools, our action framework that lets you do all kinds of stuff that normally would take a ton of JavaScript. We have conditional rendering of components. And those are really the 3 building blocks of every solution that you build with Squid. And I want to show you what that looks like really quick before we get into one of these more complex pages. So this is the Squid Composer. Squid is a managed package. You install it from the App Exchange. It exists in your org. It's 100% native, so you don't need to worry about the Squid pages that you build. You don't have to do any additional configuration to make sure that it respects your security model, that it respects your validation rules, all that stuff. You're 100% within your environment in Salesforce. And that's true of our Composer as well. So you can see the Composer. This is a Visualforce page that we're using to render it. And so any page that you set up, you're going to go connect to your data first. So I'm going to go connect to the account object. I can go get a list of accounts. You can see here I can connect to any object, custom or standard. I got a ton of controls over how that data gets brought into the page. I can pick which fields I want. I'll just go get a few: name, industry, maybe owner ID. And then I can put data in and display that data in a component. We have a large library of components: layout components with accordions, wrappers, headers, footers, wizards for step-by-step navigation, tab sets. And then we have data components as well. So decks that give you cards, forms with conditional rendering of fields, all kinds of stuff. I'm going to go get a table component, which I can drag into my page. I'm going to pick a few fields. I'll do account name, industry, and owner ID. And then I can display that. And just like that, I'm going to have a functional page with inline editing. I can go make changes, so on and so forth. I could, and then the logic piece, I can add a button here to create a new record in line. And I'm going to use the action framework. That's that logic piece. So you can see here, visual navigation to open modals, bring in sliding panels, display messages, data operations to go get more data, to create related data, branching logic, if-then scenarios, all kinds of cool things that we can do with the action framework. All I'm going to do here is going to create a new row in that model using this button. And what happens then is that should show up in my table. I can click Create New. That gives me a new record. And I've got essentially a functional app. It's very basic. It's just a table, but I've connected to data. I've displayed that data. The user can interact with it. And now I can go put this inside a Lightning page. And Squid has a native Lightning component as part of our managed package. So we're not using Visualforce if you're in Lightning. You can put it in Visualforce as well. So that's another great thing to help. If you're migrating from Classic to Lightning, you can build a single Squid page. You can use it in Visualforce, and you can use it in Lightning, and it's going to work the same way. So those are the core concepts that I wanted to explain. We've got that data layer with our models. We get that visual layer with our components, and then using actions, we can make it a lot more dynamic. Those are the basic building blocks, and hopefully that'll help us kind of understand what we're looking at then when we see some of the things that, that Eric's about to show us. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Eric, do you want to introduce yourself? What do you do? Where are you at? What kind of things are you guys doing here in 2020?
Yeah, so my name is Eric Wahlberg. I'm our Salesforce manager for Marianne Liebert. So I manage our entire Salesforce department, including administration, development, and really just anything related to Salesforce. So we're working on a lot of integrations right now, but COVID's given us an opportunity to really focus on the development. And I'm going to show you guys some of that today. We've actually fully released version 2, Squid Spark. So that is fully public now on production, which is great.
That's awesome.
I'm a huge fan of that. Also, I love the fact that you brought up the Salesforce Classic views, because it's really nostalgic for me to look back at what life used to be back then, when you could only have three columns and all those fields did not look pretty. So just want to confirm, can everyone see my screen right now?
Yeah, and Eric, before you jump in, it's coming through. So real quick, one of the reasons that that I showed the quick build of a table is that for us, we're trying to help you get out of that one page, one object paradigm. And with Squid, you can connect to any object, as many objects as you need in a single page, and then you can display those in whatever components you need. And what that means then is that you can use Squid's table component and all of its capability for an enhanced list view with a ton more functionality, with drill downs, with charts, all kinds of cool stuff. You can use all of those same tools then for your related lists as well. And so we're going to talk about some of the improvements you can make to your related lists using those principles, but then it also opens things up and you can kind of start to rethink how you're building. So what are we looking at here, Eric?
So we're looking at our account detail page, and right away you're going to notice that this is very different than what you would typically expect from an account detail page. One of the things I really like about Squid is it allows you to display data with much more granularity than you could with standard Salesforce. but also makes digesting that information really easy. So one of the things that we characteristically did when we built through Squid was decide what are the most pertinent information that the users, managers, administrators need to see when they get onto a page. So right away on the right-hand side, what you're noticing is a year-to-date sales close one, just pie chart. This could be a donut. This could be a pipeline funnel. This could be whatever you need it to be. But right away, no refreshing of dashboards. You load the page, it's already there. But what I really wanted to get into was this related list, because one of the things we noticed, whenever our managers were going into account detail pages, they would never need to see the status of a close one opportunity. It would always be pipeline. So what we've done is we've created a related list, which in Squid we term models. We just filtered this to show only pipeline. So now when a manager, loads this page, although we do give them the access to go through all opportunities, they can export. What I like, it's a small ask, but being able to select how many rows I want without having to go to a different page was huge for us. But it allows you to filter. We can build filters that only show the users that have had sales with this. So, there's a lot of dynamic things you can do within here. But really getting into here, what I like about related lists is we can tailor the data, but also allow users to preview and interact with that data. So we're really telling more of a story rather than just showing them fields. So if I click this one of, the records on a list, it's going to show the whole opportunity detail page for a manager to get into, to look at, to go through anything that they would need to. So, we're showing a whole opportunity detail page, which would normally require, navigation away, but they can go in here and even edit. So if a user wants to edit their pipeline, we're basically treating this as, them being able to see this opportunity and also be able to interact with it.
All right, let me stop you there for a second, because it looks like you're going down 3 different levels, those subscription sales that you had. So you've got one level of related list that you're using as essentially your console to drive navigation, and you want to be able to drill down into a specific opportunity. And then you've got another related list that you're showing there at the bottom that is inline editable. So you're talking 3 levels down, and you're doing inline editing on your subscription sales on an opportunity from an account detail page. And you've never left your account detail page.
Never left. So console-based views become really easy. So even going into additional related lists, being able to link key contacts from directly in here. Usually when I watch users, go through Salesforce, I'll notice them, going in and adding contacts from an account detail page. It's really about how your users choose to do the workflows, and you can really tailor it to what they need, which I love more so than anything else, because with Lightning, it would require, so much technical debt and overhaul and planning. And now I can just basically, you sit with a user, understand how they do things, and really build it so it's easy for them. 1 click rather than 3. It makes a big difference for people. It's surprising.
And that's the classic struggle, because you can go build it exactly around the user's needs a lot of the time, but then your data just becomes nuts in the background, and so, or you can do it based on what your data integrity is supposed to be, and then your users get frustrated and they just go back to Excel. And so that's what the needle we're trying to thread here is, how do you get users to have more trust in your application than Excel? And then also build up your data quality. So you have to give them incentives. That has to be valuable to them. And it looks like you talk to your users a good bit, it sounds like, to get a sense of what they need and what they want to do.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the changes I never really expected with Squid is it allowed me to sit more so with the users, because the development would just be a lot easier. So doing reflexive actions, like when someone generates a quote, it generates the line items. And again, this is all declaratively done in page. So they're not, I'm not having to create, Apex triggers for these items. If I go into sales activities and create a quote, I can just create a quote, generate the quote, and then, add an activity that allows everyone to know this guy generated a quote, give him credit for doing this sales activity, which for our users is like, well, I don't want to have to create a quote and then, an activity for it. We're working on an email-based system right now that allows people to actually email directly out of Salesforce. So again, multiple related lists on this page, we can generate directly from here as well. And then we go into tasks and activities, we can see that they've created a quote. And again, related lists are amazing because I can show the same activity detail page just from clicking that list. which
Now,
is fantastic.
what are you using for your quotes? Are you generating a document there, or is that just creating a record?
So this creates a record of the quote, and then we actually generate using DocuSign for some of our departments and Conga for others.
Cool.
And actually, I'll ping over to one of our resources over here. This is the developer toolkit that I put together. You can replicate things like Conga buttons in Squid just by using URLs. So there's a lot of power to kind of really discover with Squid. And that's one of the things I've loved working with you guys for like 5 years, is that there's always something new that I can leverage for the users, which is great for me.
And that calls something out, like we've been in the App Exchange for, 7, 8 years. And we really want to play well with others. We really want to work together with other tools. And so especially with some of the DocGen tools that are out there, being able to call that from Squid pages using Squid buttons is really, really helpful. Now, let's see here. So you're starting with the most basic thing that I need to see, that I want to see most of the time. But then you're giving the user the option to go get in deeper if they need to go do some, historical analysis or something like that. So can you scroll down and show us that bigger table where you've got your opportunities and contacts? Okay, very cool. And one of the things that I think was in some of the promo materials and stuff like that was related to filtering and sorting. And so you're using filters, and you said that there was some intelligence in terms of what options there were for the filtering there.
Yeah, so we basically just created an object sitting in the background. It's an aggregate table that just says these are the list of users that have opportunities with this account. Loads every time we run that. The data performance on that is fractions of a second. So being able to set up these, dynamic filters, what we had in standard Salesforce is our managers would have to go through an entire user filter list to try to figure out who's there. So now instead of having them try to think like, oh, where's this sales rep at, we can just show them, oh, Eric, Fallon, and Jennifer have opportunities with this account, but Kevin does not. So without having them search to see that Kevin isn't, selling to this client, we can just show them right away. So it's being able to tell that story behind the data, which has been immensely valuable for our users.
Yep.
And one thing I did want to show, because this has changed the way we fundamentally think as a company, which is a very large statement to make, but it's actually true. We're going to go to another record detail page right now that also has some KPI level of information. Every time you go here, you can see we're $13,030 up, which is 48% growth based on last year. You can also see the whole historical trending. But what I'm about to click here is a separate page than our record. So we can actually go into a dashboard from anywhere in Salesforce. And that statement has a lot of power, because if I'm showing a list of customer numbers, instead of letting them go to the detail page, I can show them our sales dashboard. So we can see close one, pipeline, sales by status, which is important for us, and really allow them to get into the data. But this is paramount on the fact that anywhere someone sees a customer number, if they see a customer number field in an opportunity detail page, they can click that and I can send them to a pop-up of this page.
Awesome.
So wherever you see a record, whether it's related to a list or anything like that, you can build these dashboard pages and allow users to just quickly see high-level summary information. And these are the pages that I work on most with people, because I always ask, we built you a dashboard, what do you see yourself filtering most often? And if I can build, another view of that, essentially what that allows is, instead of having a manager go to this page and then, apply a bunch of filters, they can just see everything they need to do on a single click. And that's really what we work towards, trying to figure out what, our manager are most often looking at, and then just displaying it. And it's been immensely valuable. Like, we've had a lot of instances. I think just going over one of these examples, we have 2 journals, AIDS patient care and AIDS research, human retroviruses. A manager would look in here and say, okay, we started them with this journal and they started trending 2020, 2021 with a much more, expensive product. How many current opportunities do I have in 2021 that have AIDS patient care and STDs that don't have AIDS research? And we've driven revenue immensely with
Okay,
this.
yeah. So you're using your opportunities, the data about those opportunities, to go find gaps or similarities that you can capitalize on. And this is really the point that I really want to drive home is because of what Salesforce lets us do as a relational database with this idea of related lists, you can use that data model and really unleash it to do what I've heard called operationalized BI. So we're not looking at huge numbers. We're just saying I want to know about this customer. I'm not even talking about artificial intelligence. I just want to be able to crunch the numbers this way to get a sense of where are we doing well, where could we be going, how have things been looking. And I don't want to think of it as a report. I want it to be part of my day-to-day work and the actions that I'm actually taking on this account. And that's what you're doing here. You're building this into your actual customer view, the day-to-day work that your users are actually going to be doing. That's really cool. Now, can we take a look behind the scenes and see what is going on with the page? Maybe just one or two things.
So let's go into the subscription sales customer numbers, because this is going to be a really good example of how easy this is to do. When you click this list, you have this little section over here. I'll make this a little bigger because I'm on a fairly large screen right now.
Before you go into interactions, though, so let's just look at the three steps. This is connected to a model that's bringing in records that are then displayed in that component. Okay, cool. So you can see here, you're connecting to all kinds of objects in a single page to do. And so you're bringing in customer numbers, and you've got a filter on there that says only get customer numbers where the account matches the account that we're starting from on this page. So that filters down your subset. And I want to call something out here, because what this lets you do is you can have multiple related lists on the same object broken down different ways. So that's what you do, where you've got your pipeline, you've got your closed opportunities maybe separately. If you want to split, if you want to view all of your record types in a single related list, you can. You could split them out into multiple related lists if you want to do different things and show different fields in the same page. So that's what our models are letting us do. So you got your model set up there, you got your fields, you're displaying it in that component. And that's great. You've got a list. That's really helpful to me. I can see that information, but then you're taking it one step further and you're making it so the user can actually do something with that, with those interactions. So yeah, what happens when they click on one of those records?
Yeah, so we can go into this. One more thing I would say about this model list, this could look like a lot different for a different company if they have a ton of related lists. But if anyone noticed, you have this query on page load option up here. So if you have 50 related lists, you're not having to load all of those instantly. You can separate them into tabs and only load that data when you click on that tab. So it's not like you have to load all this information at once. And I bring that up because our page performance increased by leaps and bounds moving to Squid. But basically what we're doing on this list is we have an interaction up here that on click, we're running an action sequence. And action sequences are useful for us because action sequences are basically things that can be used in different places. If you build a button one way in one place, you might want to build that same button into another location. So we have, create quote at the top of our opportunity detail page, same button used in a different place. So if we're going through here, this is going to be show customer number sales summary. We're just showing them a model, and it's just our page include.
You're reusing
passing this ID
that you built somewhere else. So yeah, that's another thing that's really important to us at Squid is reusability and modularity. So you can build one page, which is what you've done with the detailed customer number page, and you can reuse it in different contexts. Here you're calling it from your account detail page, but you could go to your opportunity page and I want to get some more information about the account. So then you can call it and show that in a pop-up there if you want to. So, and I want to call something out too related to actions, because action is one of those words that gets used in a lot of different ways, especially if you're in Salesforce. So Salesforce has all this great capability for back-end process automation with processes and flows, Apex triggers, all that stuff. And what we want you to do is use the back end for stuff that is good for a back end to do. And then in the front end here in the visual in the UI, you want to have a different set of tools for different kinds of action sequences. So you're calling visual elements, pop-ups, and to display things. And then you might want to go get a set of data for displaying here. So that if you're wondering what the difference is between, Squid actions and then Salesforce actions, that's really kind of how we're thinking it. We're focused on the UI and the experience. So that's very cool. So what happens then in that list is the user clicks on an item. That's how they get that pop-up with the drill down with more information. So we're actually coming up on time, I think. Anything else that you really wanted to show today?
That's really it. I mean, there are some cool features in here, like I don't think we were able to cover UI formula fields, but you can do date functions, like showing the number of days, hours, and minutes between two times. If I change this to 21st, it'll automatically update, which is cool. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you can do with UI formula fields, global merge, variable syntax. I highly recommend looking at this. This was my homepage for many, many months of my life. The global merge variable list over here. But yeah, there's a lot you can do with it. It's like Legos. You can either build like a tiny little castle, or you could build a fully functional Porsche F1911 with it. This is why I love it so much.
So yeah, that's a great place to finish up there, because the Squid's UI side, formula fields and capabilities of navigating up object hierarchy. You can navigate up 5 levels, parent account, parent account, so on and so forth. And you can navigate down 1 level to bring in child records in line with your model. What that means is that you can actually, if you're an admin, and if you've ever run up against a formula field limit because you're trying to display parent object record stuff, in line, you don't have to do that anymore with Squid, because we can let you do it at the UI. All you're wanting to do is do some UI side calculations so the user can see something, display something. It doesn't make sense to have a back-end formula field there. So that's great. So to sum up, Squid gives you, you showed us some first level enhancements. You can have as many fields as you need, as many filters as you need. You can do default complex sort on page. That's all good if you're still thinking in that kind of list paradigm. But then if you go one step further, you can start to rethink what you do with lists. Use them as a console to do drill down actions. You can drill down 3 levels, do an inline editing without ever leaving your parent page. And so that's when we talk about what you can do with related lists with Squid. Those are the kinds of things that we see as pretty revolutionary for our customers. Hopefully the folks that are joining us today are seeing that and starting to get some ideas for what might be possible. But I think we're about at time, and I know we wanted to leave some time for some Q&A. So Munira, I think it's back to you.
Yes.
What questions we can answer?
Hi, Matt. Hi, Eric. Great presentation. Lot of things to learn. It is very, to absorb this thing in such a short time is, of course, very difficult, because there are so many parts that are moving, and so many, this is a very kind of a high level. So in order to really kind of feel for the system, one needs to take a deeper dive in it. So do you guys have a place where somebody can go and learn about it, or like a Trailhead? We are so spoiled with Salesforce, some Trailheads or something like that.
Absolutely. So what I would recommend, Salesforce announced their partner Trailhead last year. I would love to have one of those. We don't yet. But in the meantime, we've been creating a ton of content this year on how to get started with Squid. So our YouTube channel and our webinars on our website are a great place to start. We have something called appetizer webinars.
Wow. Okay.
Shorter like this, yeah. And we look at all kinds of different use cases. There's actually one on related lists, one on ditching.
Oh, okay.
There's one on modern, web design practices. So those are a really great place to start. You can also install a free version of Squid and just start trying it out. If you're a Salesforce admin, you know how Salesforce objects work. You can get going with Squid very, very quickly. We've got a walkthrough that's baked into the Squid product if you go install in a dev org or a sandbox or something like that. And then our documentation is also great as well. We also have a community.squid.com where you can go ask questions, see what other people are building. Eric's pretty active on there. So he's contributed to a lot of posts. There's a lot of really interesting ideas there. So a lot of good tools for you if you want to go dive deeper.
Great. Let us not forget our non-profit folks. Generally, non-profits are very small. They don't have that much budget, but there are a lot of non-profits that would like to kind of provide a pleasant experience to their customers. Do you guys have any discounts offering for them?
I believe so. That's definitely worth talking to our team. I mean, the other thing too is, so Squid has a couple of different tiers of pricing.
Okay.
And so I think it's free for up to 5 years. So if you're a small nonprofit team, you can get a lot of value out of Squid just by being a self-starter, going and diving in, just at that level. One thing that I've seen is that's a really good fit for nonprofits, and I've worked on some engagements with nonprofits, is Squid's capabilities with portals and communities. And so,
wow.
Yeah, you can use Squid to make beautiful portals and communities without any code on Lightning or Visualforce. And talking about saving hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars is what we've heard from our nonprofit customers. So that can be a really, really good fit, and it has been for nonprofit customers for sure. And
actually,
go ahead.
Actually, maybe you can do a presentation as to how nonprofits can use Squid for the community, because the focus on nonprofit as specifically has not been done yet on Apex Hour, and we would love to include that.
Let's follow up. I think that sounds like a really great fit. One thing that we didn't touch on at all on this one, and just so much to cover in too short a time. Squid has another part of the product called the Design System Studio, where you can build out a design system for your whole app without any code, without having to get into CSS. And you can say, these are my brand colors. This is what my tables look like. This is what a field looks like when it needs attention. It's highlighted red. This is so a huge, huge set of branding and design tools that get very granular. That is great for those kinds of scenarios. So I think it'd be great for us to follow up. I think that's a really good fit. And yeah, let's talk and get that scheduled.
Awesome. I guess that's all we have for now. We cannot thank you enough for such an interactive and lively presentation. I really thank Matt and Eric. Very grateful to you both.